the overview I want to share with you is this, a number of key points. It's not new to you, but the salience of religion is increasing. Religious communities are pivotal players, from counterinsurgency to development, peace building to stewardship of the environment. Whereas it was once, as we know, considered private matter, Western policymakers, that's how they viewed religion. It is now playing an increasingly influential role in so many ways, both positive and negative. And I don't need to recount them, but you know as well as I do that religious activism was behind the 9/11 attacks, but also the fall of the Berlin Wall. It fuels bloody communal conflict in Bosnia and Sudan, but also peace and forgiveness in South Africa and Northern Ireland. It's motivated the politics of Osama bin Laden and violent Hindu nationalists, but see also Pope John Paul II and the Dalai Lama. It's pivotal at this key point in history to the fate of Afghanistan, India, Iraq, Nigeria, Pakistan, Yemen, and many other locales where the United States has vital foreign policy interests. And so the salience of religion is what fundamentally undergirds our report and its rising importance as a driver in its own right. See, not just as an epiphenomenal factor on the side or the margins, but central as a driver in what's happening. And though it has been viewed, as Rachel said, as a negative factor, a factor associated, you see, with violence, we can't view it today, the report says, solely through the lens of counterterrorism policy. And that focus, we say, is too narrow and poorly understood. And so it's in a broader sense that we want to communicate the role that religion now plays in the world, on the political scene as well, and the contributions that it can make, which have altogether too often been undervalued and overlooked. And without a framework for engagement, the United States will be absent from global community conversations, crucial conversations that need to occur. Opportunities will be missed and threats may worsen. Cairo was a very important statement, but more needs to be done. I like to quote President Obama. Here's what he said. He recognized in the speech the engaging of communities, economically and politically, influential sectors of society, including religious communities, said. This is what he said is important and follows efforts you see by both the Clinton and Bush administrations to profile religious engagement. And yet while the Cairo speech was important and influential, it's just a start. And it doesn't in so many ways lay out the future. It's cast a vision, but the question is, what will the strategy be? Whether or not, the question is, the U.S. can build on the lessons of the last 8 years in order to craft a sustainable and an effective strategy to address the role of religion. And that's what we're about here. That's, I think, the most fundamental of questions. The patterns you can look at, they're laid out. They include the influence of religious groups on all sectors of society, business and science, as well as politics and culture. Number two, the changing patterns of religious identification are having significant political implications. We know that. Religion is not epiphenomenal. That is a secondary human experience that has no bearing on politics or political development that we can ignore. It plays an important public role where governments lack capacity and legitimacy, particularly where we have weak states, we know, even failed states. And religion can be a conflict escalator. And this can occur in part from the way in which it intersects with other global developments. For instance, the Sunni-Shia conflict in Iraq was well known to exist, but it became politically relevant on a global level when it was put into the mix of Al-Qaeda. And so religion can thus become a conflict escalator. If you look in the report, we cite numerous instances. One of those that particularly I reference would and asked the report to include the way in which, for example, American evangelical engagement on Israel has been used at times to be a conflict escalator and to deny, I think, the peace process that ought to go forward in that part of the world. Growing salience of religion also deepens the political significance of religious freedom. And we'll look at the aspects of that in the future, but as we converse. But Obama put it this way. He said, people should be free to choose and live their faith based upon the persuasion of the mind, heart, and the soul. And yet we know the fact is that religious freedom has been used, in ways that overseas people believe this is something a part of, what would be a Christian crusade or Western imperialism. And so the logical question then is, how does it play a role rightly? That is religious freedom. Why should it matter to the United States government? We do here? Well, we know the United States government has on only an episodic level, an infrequent level, and sometimes ill-considered, engaged with religion. The challenges that we face are global. Rogue regimes, terrorism, pandemics. But the context, we say, is local, and the key actors are often religious. Finally, let me say the three strategic strategies that we, and challenges that we enunciate in the report are: one, the need to maintain long-term health of bilateral alliances while supporting liberalization in countries where the likely winner of elections is anti-American. And we deal specifically with the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt as a case example. And we know, for example, the foundation of U.S. security depends on our alliances, but at times those alliances come in conflict with our deeply felt views about the need for democratization and human rights. And so these two elements, U.S. security alliances and democratization, we point out in the report, these two elements are sometimes in conflict. You well know that. And so we say a second strategic challenge is to promote human rights, but in a way that is not perceived as an assault on local faith and custom. And we've always been known as a nation that supports human rights. And yet, as I said earlier, the emphasis on advocacy of human rights and religious freedom are perceived in some parts of the world as part of an anti-religious or pro-Christian imperialist strategy by Western powers. And so how do we do it in a way that it's not perceived as an assault? That's the second main strategic challenge. The third is the need to marginalize extremists without counterproductive involvement in intra-religious debates. This, I think, will challenge us as much as anything in the coming years. Religions are not monolithic, we say in the report, nor are the political movements they inspire. And so how do we practice this engagement, religious engagement, in ways that are not perceived as simply the manipulation of religious groups? We can talk about that here. In sum, the strategic assumption of this report is that promoting a rigidly secular alternative to the religious element of world politics will be ineffective and may make things worse. Let me repeat that again. Promoting a religiously secular alternative to the religious element of world politics will be ineffective and make things worse. And so, back to the earlier question, can we do something that will be sustainable and effective to address the role of religion in the world of the 21st century? And we believe that we have a strategy and a framework that does work.